Hi, how are you doing today? It is time for my October wrap up. If you watched my Spookapoli vlog, you know that I had some issues with filming recently where I filmed a bunch, the mic was broken, didn't realize it. Now I have to refilm everything. So that's also what we're doing today. I already filmed my wrap up a couple of days ago, realized the sound was not working way too late, and now I have to do it all over again. So I apologize if this is like, I don't know, not the vibe. I'm doing my best. I really am. Just know that there's like the second time I'm filming this. But yeah, October, fun month, participated in Spookopoly, had a great time doing so. Also got really sick for like quite a big chunk of time there, so I didn't get as much reading on as I typically do, but I am still happy with my stats, so let's go over those. In total, I read 9 books this month, which amounts to 3,219 pages, which is an average of 357.66 pages per book and an average of 103.83 pages per day. For format, we have 3 books I physically own, 2 ebooks, 2 galleys from my galleys, and 2 library books. For rating, we have 1 1-star, 2 2-stars, 2 3-stars, 1 4-star, and 3 5-stars, which amount to an average rating of 3.33. So even though that average rating still isn't like really high, it is, I think, the first month this year with the 5 stars have rating supreme as like the biggest category. So that at least is a win to me. For age range, we have 4 young adult novels and 5 adult books. For genre, we have 4 paranormals, 3 mystery thrillers, 1 contemporary, and 1 fantasy. So yeah, like I said, really happy with those stats. So let's just get into every book I read in the month of October, starting off with A Blue Lily, Lily Blue by Maggie Stiefvater, which I give out of 5 stars to. This is the 3rd book in the Raven cycle, which I been trying to make my way through in the past couple of months. In the past September I read 1 and 2, and then October I'm continuing on with it. And I really love this one, which kind of took me a bit by surprise because 1 and 2 were rereads and they both kind of were lowered in rating a little bit for me, despite still enjoying them. So when I reached this book, which was the first one that I was reading for the first time, I was really nervous to get into things, but I absolutely ended up adoring this one. I just think this definitely like the peak of the series, and I have seen a lot of people say that this is their favorite in the series, and I totally agree with that. I just feel like character dynamics and just general character stuff and atmosphere is just so well done, which it is in the entire series. With this book also has the job of kind of upping the stakes a little. This is the penultimate book in the series, so you know the stakes have to be raised. We gotta start feeling that sense of dread a little bit because the end is near. And I feel like this book executed that amazingly. I honestly, my heart was racing throughout the entire book because I wanted to keep reading and find out what was gonna happen next. That being said, it was also a very like not necessarily action packed book, but definitely had continuously things happening, some smaller, some bigger, which kept me on the edge of my seat because it just was constantly going in a way that just perfectly worked. And yeah, I was just absolutely obsessed with this book. I read it in one sitting, and I'm still not over just how good this book was. Then the next book that I read this month is Fang Fiction by Kate Stayman-London, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars to as I get it from NetGalley. This is one that is just perfectly up my alley. So for other people this might not be as perfect as it was for me, but I do still recommend this if it is on your radar. I do still think it will be like a very fun time nonetheless. But for me, it was my perfect book. I really think this book did a great job balancing kind of like the more serious aspects of this novel with the overall light-hearted tone and kind of like silly nature of this book. I thought that was all really balanced well. I also just enjoyed kind of seeing all the different forms of vampire media that the author kind of like took inspiration from and like pulled things from to create her own vampire lore. And I thought that was a really fun aspect of this book as well. It was just really well crafted. And once again, a really engaging story with a great romance is at the center of it. And I just had a blast reading this. Then next I read Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley, which I give 2 out of 5 stars to, which I was so sad about because I had heard so many great things about this book, and there are some aspects of this that I did really like. This deals a lot with very serious topics, and I feel like the way those topics are dealt with is very well done, and done so in a way that I feel like it's not that common in a lot of YA mysteries. So I definitely appreciate it for that. I thought, like I said, it was that part of it was really well executed. It just when it comes to like the actual mystery of it, I feel like this book was mainly very slow moving. It took us a very long time to kind of like get upon clues, and in the end I thought the reveal was just extremely obvious to me, and then some aspects to it weren't explained well enough, but the big things were like so obvious that it just kind of felt weird when you have this very smart, intelligent main character that gets brought in by the FBI to help investigate this shit. That's how smart she is. And she just kind of accidentally stumbles across it. Never thought of it as like a possible theory. Yet that was actually the thing that has been right in front of us this entire time, that us are coming from miles and miles away. It had just, I don't know, just made this whole thing kind of like fall into a bit of a letdown. But no bigger disappointment than my next read, which is Throttled by Lauren Asher, which I gave 1 star to. I really didn't like this book. I would have DNF'd this if it wasn't for the fact that I have previously enjoyed Lauren Asher books before, and I own his entire series because I stupidly enough thought I was also gonna like this one. And you know what, I say stupidly, maybe the other books are better, but this just really wasn't. You can tell that it's Lauren Asher's debut because her writing just isn't good in this book. It feels very unnatural, very stiff, especially in the dialogue. That does not feel like how real people talk. But even when it comes to like in a monologue, it just never flows as nicely as it should. And on top of that, I feel like this book is just too sex focused for me. We skip over a lot of emotional like bonding kind of scenes with our main characters, which also causes for the fact that I don't know anything about these main characters, because the scenes where they get to know each other, we kind of skip over those and just kind of mention like, oh yeah, we talked about this and dinner one night, and then they're fucking, and that is what we get in detail, the fucking, not the actual conversation they had. So I just never really felt attached to anything that was happening in this. Like I said, it was just way too sex focused. You know what, I don't mind actual sex scenes on page, but when your whole inner monologue is about how these two characters want to fuck each other, and when two side characters meet, everyone is talking about, oh, they look like they want to fuck each other, and like it's all about how fuckable people are, I just stopped giving a shit. The next, I read The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater, which I give 2 to 5 stars to. This is the final book in the series, and just as a finale was a bit of a disappointment to me. Like in Blue Lily Blue, I mentioned like the character dynamics and like the atmosphere and stuff like that. That was still very present and very good in this book, but it just feels like for quite a big chunk of this book, we really don't do anything, and the things we do are side quests that don't seem important at this point. And you know, part of me was like, maybe if we like get to like the big things happening, the main resolution, you'll see how these like seemingly random side quests actually are important. But then we get those things and it just proved to me how unimportant those side quests was earlier. So that just, I don't know, therefore I wasn't like the biggest fan of this book. Also because I think the way the reveals were done were very rushed. Some things that were actually really important were just dropped with no explanation. Other things, they get wrapped up a little bit but not enough to feel satisfactory, just like the scope of the role that it played within the series. And I just think as the series finale kind of like felt like a womp womp, but overall like it still has those good elements in it that the entire series has. So it's like a 3 star is the best I could land on. Then next, I read My Vampire Plus One by Jenna Levine, which I give 2 to 5 stars to. Again, I got from NetGalley. This is honestly my definition of a middle of the road book, where I had a lot of fun reading this. I read this very quickly. I thought it was funny. I thought it was like cute. It was charming. It had its moments. But overall, I feel like the plot was very predictable. The romance a bit underdeveloped. The characters a bit one-dimensional and very forgettable in its nature. Like I don't think I'm gonna remember much about this in like a year's time from now. As a year was a long time, like in a few months from now I feel like I'm not gonna remember too much about this book, but I had a fine enough time reading it, so therefore it lands up on a 3 star for me. I also don't really have any more to say about it. Then next I read 0 Days by Ruth Ware, which I give 4 to 5 stars to, and I know this is an unpopular opinion because I feel like this is like Ruth Ware's least popular book. Like I feel like every person I've seen talk about this doesn't like it, but I thought this was a whole lot of fun. I thought just the premise just makes for a really fun book where it's very high stakes, it's very interesting. You have to do different things than we typically do in a mystery to uncover what actually happened, because we're on the run from the bullies. Like our main character can paint up on their radar, so that creates for like interesting dynamics. And then our main character also is like a professional, like I was gonna say thief, but like she doesn't steal anything, but like she breaks into places to kind of like check her security, like that's her job. So she has a lot of those abilities as well, and I just think that made for such an interesting protagonist and a otherwise storyline that I feel like, you know, a wife investigating what happened to her husband because the police think she did it. I feel like that's such a common storyline, and that just, I think there's like small elements to it created for such a fun different take on it that generally had my heart racing, and I wanted to keep reading. I was on the edge of my seat. It also kind of has a countdown element to it, which just added to that high pacedness. The only reason why this didn't end up being a 5-star for me is because I did think that the ending was very predictable, and again, aspects to it not explained well enough. I have not come across it with her book yet, but I feel like the ending is well executed, so that just might be a thing of the author. But for the rest, I just thought it was a really good time. I don't know what's wrong with me, that I'm the only person that seems to think so, but oh well. Then next I read The Wrath of the Triple Goddess by Riordan, which I gave out of 5 stars to. This is the new Percy Jackson book, and I loved it. I did a whole spoiler vlog for this. You can go check out my in-depth thoughts on it if you want to know it. But there's just something about life just being so much better when you're reading the new Percy Jackson book, and this was such a delightful read. I feel like this one is more kind of like on the cozier fantasy side, where it's like a more fun Halloween ghosty story with a lot of messages around finding family at its core, and it does have some more emotional moments, but nothing like too like sad, I guess. And I don't know, I just had a smile on my face throughout most of this because it was just so lovely reading this book, and yeah, I adored it. And then we already arrived at the last book for today, which is good because I generally, this stack is pretty unstable. I don't know how long it's gonna last. But the final book I read this month is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, which I gave 5 stars to. Not of a popular opinion, this time in a different direction, because this one is just really, really popular. And that is why I was excited to read this, but it honestly didn't end up working for me. To be fair, I did have a fine enough time reading this for the most part. I wasn't like too invested in it, but I was curious about what would happen. I also adored like the little sections of the Netflix documentary that appear in this one, because there's like a Netflix series documentary aspect to this as well. And I thought those parts were so well written. Like I could generally picture it all so clearly in my head, like the scene transitions and everything. I knew how it would happen on screen, and that's just because it was that well written. But like when I was already like only having a fine time with this. I wasn't enjoying it thoroughly. And then when all of like the reveals kind of started happening, I thought that they were very predictable. And like I said, it was really popular. And one of the reasons why, at least what I've seen, is that a lot of people are shocked by like the twist in this one. And like I said, I saw all of them coming, like all of them. And it just, I don't know, that was frustrating. But on top of that, I feel like those reveals also added a problematic element to this book that just gave me such an ick that I really didn't like, and I can't talk about it because it is spoilery, but I hated it so much that therefore my overall enjoyment of this book just went into the water. It's not a 1 star because like I said, there are elements to it that I did enjoy, but overall I feel like this just went into the deep end when it shouldn't have. So yeah, I don't even know what that analogy was. That's not how that works, but you know what I mean. And yeah, that is everything I read in October. Like I said, a little bit less than usual, but I'm still really happy with what I read, especially because I feel like it's very seasonal. It's very like Halloween vibes throughout it all, which typically I always tend to forget around this time of year. And I definitely blame Spookopoly for that. Like those prompts definitely helped me out in that department. But yeah, let me know in the comments to tell these books if you read them, and also some of the books you read in October, and then hopefully I'll see you around next time. Bye!